Well, howdy party people and space cadets, and welcome to the Galactic Happy Hour. I'm your host, Spyline Slim, and on this week's episode we'll be talking about my favorite G.I.Joe figures. And by G.I.Joe figures, I mean just the Joes themselves, unlike the last list where I covered just the Cobra figures. And this one's going to be slightly different, because as I've said many times before, because I'm redundant, is that the thing I liked most about G.I. Joe is the ability to pretend they were other characters, other creatures, other things, or make up my own stuff for them. And that's why I mostly had Cobras, because they were the kind of lended themselves more so to that sort of thing. Whereas the Joes themselves, those I didn't have nearly as many, and the ones I did have, in most cases, were actually characters I liked. So in most cases, I actually played with them as the characters they were supposed to be. Especially number 5. And number 5 would be Shipwreck from 1985. The lovable scoundrel, the Han Solo of G.I. Joe. He was released in the 4th series of Joes and wasn't discontinued until 1987. So that's a good run from 85 to 87. He came with a pistol, a boarding hook, and his parrot, Headman, who later broke off and became a drug dealer. Very sad story. According to Shipwreck's file card, his real name was Hector Delgado, and his primary specialty was he was a gunner's mate with a secondary specialty of machinist. Man, I loved this character, and that's just a testament to how good the character was on the show, because it wasn't very cool looking. I mean, just kind of a sailor guy in a hat. But man, he just had such a great personality, and like I said, kind of the Han Solo of the G.I. Joe world. And the actual figure was a birthday present from a friend on my, I want to say kindergarten birthday party, maybe first grade, but I do think it might have been kindergarten. I have to do that math and figure out what age I was when, but yeah, somewhere around there. Now, a piece of trivia, or figure trivia, Shipwreck's body, it was a completely original sculpt. None of his parts were ever reused to build other action figures, nor did his parts come from other action figures. I thought that was pretty neat. And, well, I guess kind of technically, sorta, in Brazil, they actually got a Shipwreck Tiger Force version. Essentially just Shipwreck in the Tiger Force colors, which I think that's pretty neat. They should have released that here. Because I know that later cartoon series where the Tiger Force came in kind of has a bad rap. I really can't say because I don't remember much about it. It came on before I got home from school. But I do remember the Tiger Force colors being super cool. And number 4 on the list is Ninja Force Snake Eyes from 1993. And this was the 5th version of Snake Eyes released in the 12th wave of G.I. Joe figures. He came with a whole bunch of Frank Reynolds approved blue.
I don't see any blue on this menu.
Including 3 swords, a knife, claws, nunchucks, and a figure stand. Now the file card says his primary specialty was infantry, I read ahead, was infantry. His secondary specialty was hand-to-hand combat instructor. Kind of odd that someone who didn't speak was an instructor of something. Can you imagine how that class went? I can't. Now, he was released in the Ninja Force line, which was a revamp and total refresh of the line for me, because I basically just completely lost interest in G.I. Joes. But then this Ninja Force line came out, and I just thought it was so cool. I mean, it looked like something from a early 90s cereal. Looked like something from 1990s cereal. Looked like something from 1990s superhero comics. Like Jim Lee or Rob Liefeld or something would have designed these characters. And that was about the time I started collecting comics and stuff, and so yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. And even at that time, I started collecting the G.I. Joe comic for the first time, because it kind of went over to that Ninja Force style. And just pouches. Love all the pouches. All Snake Eyes really needed was a mullet, and he would have been a great, perfect 90s comic book character. And the figure trivia, this is another totally original sculpt, though many parts of it were used later on. And number 3 on the list is Jinx from 1987, a red female ninja from the 6th series of Joes. She was produced in 1987 and 88 and discontinued in 89. And she came with a backpack, 2 ninja swords that could fit in her backpack, and a Nagi Nata. And according to the file card, her primary specialty was intelligence, and her secondary specialty was finance clerk. Yeah, ninja, accountant, hand in hand. See what I did there? Hand, ninja, foot, clamp. Never mind. Anyway, my view, I have to say, this is one of the few kind of, not really cheats on the list, but a retroactive like. Because I'd kind of lost Joe at that point. That was in that time period when I just really wasn't that into G.I. Joes when she came along, other than some of the monster guys from the movie. So I just kind of missed Jinx at the time, but looking back, such a cool looking character and cool character design. And a piece of trivia, Jinx only made one appearance in the original cartoon, and that was in the movie. Yeah. Underused. And now it's time for a commercial break.
Jake Rockwell, detonator and hacker, each sold separately.
Evil hacker attacks Jake Rockwell. Eat this, Centurion. I need a more powerful weapon. Energized detonator. Now try my diet. This will stop you. Piece of cake. And now for you. I'm out of here. You're history.
New Centurions, detonator, Jake Rockwell, and hacker come as shown, each sold separately.
And we're back, and it's time for the horoscope of the week. And this week's horoscope goes to Libra. Libra, your body is not an actual original sculpt or mold. It is actually a retool of the Miles Mayhem figure from Mask, also known as Jace and the Wheeled Warriors. And number 2 on the list is Ninja Force Stormshadow from 1992. The third version of Stormshadow, released in the 11th wave of Joes. Though in my mind, I remember all the Ninja Force figures kind of coming out at once. It's weird that we have this Stormshadow, and according to my research, I did a little bit from the very cool YoJoe.com. Should have mentioned that earlier, that a lot of this information, every picture you're going to see comes from YoJoe.com. But it said 1992. It's weird that Stormshadow would come out before Snake Eyes. But he came with a sword, a sickle, and a stand. No Frank Reynolds blue. The file card says his primary specialty was covert operations, and his secondary specialty was martial arts instructor. See, that's what, I could see that. That would be a good martial arts instructor. Now, I actually didn't like Stormshadow for a long time until this design, and I tell you, it was the design that made the figure, because I've never been a fan of action features. And that was one of the kind of drawbacks of the Ninja Force line. And I didn't like his his action feature, but the figure was so cool, and I loved that design. And I found it kind of odd that when they did the new classified, the big fancy pants Joes, that they called that design like Arctic Stormshadow or something like that. Either way, it's my favorite Stormshadow design. Very cool. And figure trivia, his body was a new sculpt as well. But they went crazy with him after that, and his parts were used to make 7 different figures over the rest of the line. And number 1 on the list, along with my neighbor's noisy air conditioner out there, is Duke from 1983. And Duke was an amazing looking fantasy warrior that came out in the first wave of Joes. He came with a sword and a cool looking spooky rounded shield. Man, let me tell you, I was really into fantasy stuff at that time period. From Thunder the Barbarian, the Conan movies, yes, He-Man as well, and Beastmaster, I just loved all that stuff. And Duke had such a cool design. You can just imagine him riding into battle on his steed going against Cobra. And normally I'm not a big fan of when outfits are like there's one long sleeve, one short sleeve, one pant leg, no pant leg. But man, Duke, he rocked that armor on one side and the bare muscular leg and arm on the other side. Yeah, great character. I had so much fun with that figure. And trivia. A little piece of trivia about Duke that's interesting is they were actually going to kill him in Transformers the movie alongside Leader 1. But after the backlash they faced from killing Rainbow Bright, Kenner decided to just put Duke in a coma instead after he was attacked by the gummy bears. And that's all the time we have this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, and may your pants always be filled with marshmallows.